the WWE Draft, where the landscape of sports entertainment shifts and destinies are rewritten, opening fresh opportunities for talent who might need to change the scenery to get their careers back on track, or seeing an NXT call-up get their chance on the big stage. So let's get into it and look at the Smackdown side of things. So let's roll the intro.
Yeah, it's our time to shine. Show that's the kind of state of mind you gotta combine with hard work and time. You gotta climb to the top. Don't let yourself drop till your heart stops. Let this beat rock. Got a new clock and a new stock for this new rock. Just let your mind loose from the new stock. Drunk off the goose, thinking that I'm too pop. Getting caught with a few thoughts cause I'm too lost. Let me break it all down for you. I ain't never giving up.
First off, I'm going to get it started with the champions. I don't think Cody, Bayley, or A-Town will be changing brands, but I do see Sammy swapping over with the Intercontinental title from Raw to SmackDown, because even when he loses it, I think he's got a lot of storyline there to go with SmackDown. Next up, Kevin Owens, I say, staying on SmackDown. Part of the reason Sammy goes over is because they're going to see a reunion with him and Kevin Owens, and one of the bigger storylines I see going into next year's Mania. The Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns, stays on SmackDown because we can all see the bigger storyline blending in. That way I also see Jimmy Uso staying on there, and Jey Uso going back to SmackDown from Raw, because I see those two coming back together in what is going to be the overall major story for the next year. And that major storyline is the new Bloodline, which stays on SmackDown. Tama Tonga, Solo Sikoa, I don't think he'll be a part of the draft, but Jacob Fatu, I believe, will be a part of that too. It's going to be old Bloodline versus new Bloodline. That's going to be the major storyline going forward for the next year in SmackDown, it seems. So all them guys are all going to go on SmackDown. Next up, I got the team of Damage Control staying on SmackDown. I think they still got a lot more feuds to go with the likes of Bayley, and some of the new people I have coming over will be great foes for them, so I see Damage Control staying on SmackDown. And I got our first NXT call-up for SmackDown. Most people thought he was going to Raw. I think he's going to end up on SmackDown. That's going to be the Mad Dragon himself, Ilya Dragunov. I think he goes to SmackDown because my next thing, I think, is the perfect first feud for him. And that first feud is going to be with the Imperium coming over from Raw. It's a great feud. It worked well in NXT UK. I think it'll work well in the main roster. Also, I think it's time for Gunther to get pushed up to the main event title scene, and I think a feud with him and Cody would be better than a feud with him and Damian Priest. Next up, I've got Braun Breaker and Jade Cargill staying on SmackDown. They were just recently signed. I wouldn't do the whole big we're signing with SmackDown thing just to move them over in the draft. I think they stay with SmackDown. Next up, I see Roxanne Perez being called up to SmackDown from NXT. She's done great heel work in the past few months. I think she'd be a great one of the great first challengers for Bayley in her run. Roxanne Perez to SmackDown. Next up, I got AJ Styles staying on SmackDown. He's got that match with Cody Rhodes coming up. I think they actually might extend that feud a little bit more. AJ Styles stays on SmackDown. Next up, I've got the group of Bobby Lashley, the Street Profits, and B-Fab, unofficially known as the Pride, staying on SmackDown. Think they're about to put in trios championships into WWE, and I think this move to them on SmackDown makes them perfect candidates for it. Next up, I have the LWO staying on SmackDown. Yeah, it looks like Carlito might be getting ready to turn on him, but at this time he hasn't, so he gets put in with the LWO. Think there's going to be a big storyline with that. Also, as I mentioned, trios titles. A lot of members there who can have it. Bianca Belair stays on SmackDown. No real dive there. She's been great on SmackDown. She stays there. Next up, I think we have the absolute official call-up of Carmelo Hayes. He had saddled on SmackDown at the end of last year. I think he is officially called up to the Blue brand in the draft. Next up, Indy Hartwell, Candice LeRae go to the Blue brand. Think that could spice up the women's tag division over there. Next up, I got Chelsea Green going over to the Blue brand. She might be staying on the Red brand just to have Samantha Irvin keep giving her announcement. But I think she goes to the Blue brand, splitting from Piper Niven, because I think she is going to reform her tag team with a returning Sonya Deville on SmackDown. Next up, I've got Ivar with Valhalla going over to SmackDown. Eventually, I do think Eric will join this group, but I don't think he'll be part of the draft. I think he's still a few months away from coming back. But Ivar with Valhalla to SmackDown. Next up, we got a swap over and a breakup of a team, as I think Alpha Academy is done with Chad Gable's heel turn this past Monday night on Raw. And that leaves Otis and Tozawa staying together as a tag team, but moving over to SmackDown. Next up, I have DIY, the team of Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, going over to SmackDown. A lot of heel-heavy tag teams over there right now. I think a good babyface would help. Next up, OC staying on SmackDown for anything that if AJ needs them, they're there. If they need to put them back together with AJ, they're on the same brand. It's an easy thing. Next up, Naomi returning at the Rumble is staying on SmackDown, mainly because her husband Jimmy is on SmackDown. They like to keep those kind of couples together. Naomi stays on SmackDown. Next up, I have Nia Jax moving over to SmackDown. Not a lot of people for Bayley to be feuding with outside of Damage Control. Moving Nia over gives her a good heel to challenge. Next up, the New Catch Republic, the team of Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne, stays on SmackDown. No need to move them. Keep them there. I got Ricochet moving over to SmackDown. I think he's pretty much stuck in a rut there at Raw. I think him going over to SmackDown might give him a nice kick. This is one I can see going either way. I think Sheamus does go back to SmackDown though. Really doesn't have a home. But I see him going on SmackDown. It seems like a good fit. I see Tegan Nox going to SmackDown, breaking up her little tag team with Natalya. They got to do something with her. She's too talented not to be a mainstay. Maybe SmackDown's just the place for her. And to round things out, we got Tiffany Stratton, who I believe is the future of the women's division. I guarantee you sooner than later she will have the gold, and she's probably going to be the one to take it from Bayley. Now let's talk about some free agents. People who I don't think are going to be drafted, kind of like they did last year, where they can show up at any show. I see Apollo Crews being a free agent. They haven't done anything with him since his NXT call-up last year at the draft. Not really much to do, just have him be a free agent, go wherever. Next up, we got the newly formed tag team of Cedric Alexander and Ashanti the Adonis. Let them be free agents, pop up wherever, get them as much exposure as there to see what we can do with that tag team. And finally, we have Nikki Cross. She's been pretty much MIA except for a few creepy shots in the background. Just have her be a free agent. She's probably on her way out. And there you have it, my SmackDown and free agent predictions for the WWE Draft. I know I'm missing some people like Charlotte and Shotzi, whatnot, but I don't think they're going to be a part of the draft because their injuries are so far out. People like Carmella, who we don't even know if she's coming back because she's had issues after her pregnancy. Also, people like Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss I had not put in there because I feel they're going to have non-draft implications when they come back with Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, however they bring him back. So I don't think they'll be a part of the draft, so I did not mention any of those people. But anyways, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Also, leave a comment down below. Tell me your thoughts on the draft. And as always, we'll see you again.
Watch out, 'cause I'm here now and I'm staying.